about already on the agenda? Or?
A couple of quick things. Just a quick update on the paving program. I talked to Redstone today. They assured me they were going to be finished with the paving today, so that project is going to be wrapped up as of today. We had a small scope change on Airport Road. In lieu of doing the base repair, we decided to do a leveling course in some of those areas. That was at the recommendation of the contractor and discussed with our inspector, my office, and Mr. Parrish as well. So that was a minor scope change there on Airport Road. Otherwise, I think that project's gone very well. They've moved in and out pretty quickly. So number 2 on the engineer's report is a schedule update for the Finleyville Rama Road sewage project. I talked to Jason Stanton and Eric Fritz of Lennon Smith earlier this week. They intend to present the Sewage Act 537 plan amendment to the Peters Creek Sanitary Authority Board at their meeting on August 28th. After which that plan amendment will be presented to Union Township, who will in turn review it, and if it's to our satisfaction, they will approve that 537 plan amendment. Our board will, so that we can then proceed to the permitting phase and the completion of the design phase, and then ultimately the construction of the project. So we've talked about this a few times, and there have been a couple delays. Admittedly, Lennon Smith had a pretty tight, aggressive schedule to get this Act 537 plan completed. I know they've been working hard on the design, and they intend to present to the Peters Creek Board at the end of the month, which will move us on to the next step in that process. That's all I have on the sewage project at this point. I'll skip number 3 for now, since that's on the agenda. Mineral Beach planned residential development is on the engineer's report this month. We've had some conversations between Michelle and myself, Dennis and myself, and Chuck and myself regarding where things stand with this development. We had a conference call on the 20th with Kevin Braun and his consulting engineer, KBH, so that everybody could start to piece together where things stand relative to the approval process for this plan. So I'm going to make the suggestion now that we schedule a follow-up call before our August 9th. Coming out of the call with Mineral Beach, we scheduled a follow-up call for August 9th. I should have said that earlier. I would recommend that we reconvene as a group before we reconvene with Mr. Braun and his team, so that we can compile the issues that we're aware of at this point, and get a list of items that I think need to be addressed as part of this plan moving forward.
But right now, we're incurring expenses with you
Correct.
and myself.
That's issue number 1.
I mean, I think there should be some type of agreement right now. The developers agreement, we should put together.
I agree with that.
And they
yes.
should put so much money in escrow, because there's a lot of issues that I see with that project.
I completely agree.
You know,
Yeah.
When I research the property itself, I just see, questions about, access to roads and everything else. And it appears like Baltimore Road is not a township road.
It is not.
So that's a private road, so there has to be, but there's so many issues that we have to be cognizant of. But I'll put together a developer's agreement, and basically they're gonna have to put so much money up front. I mean, right now, the money that we're expending on you and myself
Yeah.
is actually the taxpayers.
The board's
money.
efforts to collect reasons,
Right,
track
so-
down documents from the past, right?
I mean, because right now, every time I've looked, it's just a mess. So I'll put together a developer's agreement between the township and Mr. Braun, or whoever it is. There's so much money up front, and, I don't, we're gonna have to have something in place,
Mm-hmm.
so. Got it?
Agreed. Anybody else have anything on Mineral Beach at this point?
If you were to give us a synopsis of what's happening out there, DJ, or has happened, is there anything concrete?
That's what the meeting was, like, informational to gather up what they say they have, almost like y'all did with Tuscany and.
You know, where they are, and I I understand, I caught part of your conference, and I know that you guys have one tonight.
Yes.
That's such a hodgepodge out there, it appears. I don't know where the hell we stand.
Right, there's
Who's
no,
doing what?
as far as we can tell, there's no developer's agreement in place between the developer and the township. As Dennis referenced, that's a major issue number one. There's issues centered on the sanitary authority and, you know, the approval process there with Peters Creek. As Dennis alluded to, there's issues with Walter Long Road and the nature of the road. As of now, it's not shown on any of Union Township's roadway maps. It's not part of the liquid fuel inventory.
It's not on the PennDOT.
It's not, as far as, it's not owned by Union Township. It's not a public road.
Even though I drove up the road one day just to take a look at it, and it looks like someone's maintaining it. It would look like it's a township road, but really it's being maintained well.
And the developers, sorry to cut you off. The developer's proposing improvements to Walter Long Road from a portion all the way up to the top of the hill, but there's an issue about it. We're saying issue a lot, I understand, but there's concerns about private versus public ownership of the original
There's some
portion of Walter Long Road.
documentation that the federal government owns the beginning.
But also, there's probably something in our seldom that says, when it's a private road, you can only have so many lots.
The only roads
Correct.
he owns after.
So that road's gonna have to be brought up to township
The
specs,
federal government may or may
or
not.
dedicated to
own it.
township.
The portion of, from what we can gather, the portion of Bloxham Road and Walter Long Road is owned by the federal government, still to this day.
Walter Long has a partial number all the way down to. So then.
Above,
I started researching the beginning, and in 1952, the federal government got it from Mr. Fluxum. When they released all of their liens and stuff, and they sold to Walter Long, they've never released the beginning. The beginning, no, Walter Long does own from Bloxham up, but the beginning has never been vacated.
It's not, so
The
probably,
condemnation they.
The only thing that may happen there, they may drag it out like we did with trying to get the property up to the Nike site.
That's their issue, not ours.
problem is, it's not a township road, it's not a public
Right.
road.
They can't dedicate it
And
to us.
when you
They
have,
don't know what to dedicate it.
Right.
when you don't have a public road, your seldom normally precludes you from allowing subdivisions of more than 4 lots or something. I don't know what our seldom requires. So they have so many different things to go through. I mean, I've done a lot of research on it, spent a lot of time going through it. So we need to get a developer's agreement. What I,
Also, Peter's.
I have a question, and maybe this is a stupid question, and you can say it's a stupid question. But why are we researching this? They wanna put a development in. Why are we expending tax dollars doing this when they wanna bring it to us? That's their job.
They
to
have
because,
provide that.
let me respond to you, because.
Or is
they-
that a stupid
No,
question?
Because what happened is, I don't trust anybody, let me put it that way. When I first talked to them, they made all these different affirmations. They had developers agreement, they had all these different things. So then I'm like, show me the developers agreement, show me the different things, they can't show me anything. So they wanted to develop something, but they don't have the facts and figures. So when they call us up and send me emails wanting to have a meeting and do a development agreement, I have to do my due diligence to make sure what they're telling is the truth. And really, it's not
They did have
accurate.
one in 2019, but then it was adjusted so much that it's not.
So that's the reason why, but whatever money, when I do the developers agreement, they're going to have to recompense the township for both what's been spent to date for both TJ and myself, because,
I work for free.
because like I say, they told me they had developers agreement. And I said, they don't, so I mean, they tell me things, but I have, you know,
I've been told at Peters Creek that they don't have a developers agreement with that. So we really can't move forward with anything until.
so that's the reason, but when they make affirmations, I have to check it out, what they're saying, so I'm not gonna do anything further until they sign developers agreement. And what I'll do is put in there that they have, I'll take TJ's bill and my bill, and say, we need to pay this, plus we have to put so much in escrow, plus it'll be replenishing in escrow, so if it goes to a certain amount, then they have to replenish it back. Because I know in the past, what they did here in the past, they just, the engineer and the solicitor kept billing, and people basically owe the money to the township. I'm not gonna let that happen, okay?
Yeah,
And
but
just if you follow it up, they passed an ordinance to change that so they could put housing up in that area. They passed the ordinance a month before they established what the boundaries of that property was. You can't do it that way. The previous board has everything so messed up.
Yeah, I was.
We don't even know where we can step in yet.
They don't have, Peter Street, I was told, does not have a bond.
You
or
start from the
developer's
beginning.
agreement.
There's a
But
procedure.
What we had
Well, it's
was
like
an
when the city's
information
starting, where the
gathering.
developers are going to start the
You
whole
You start
process
from the
over.
beginning,
And
there's a
that's what we were
process.
making sure we
But
did.
what they said, when they first discussed this with us, they kept saying,
And they do
they had
have,
all these different
Yeah, well,
documents.
yeah,
they do
don't.
have an escrow,
Right.
they do have a developer's agreement, we
Yeah.
just wanna know if they were
So you
viable.
start from the beginning.
It's looking like it,
Just have them start all over.
it's looking like that might be the case.
Okay?
But until we do the research and until we do if we would have harmed them in any way, then that would have been, they were saying they had everything and that they hadn't.
yeah, they feel as if they're at the point where they can get a grading permit and begin construction. We're determining that is
May not be the case.
looking like it's not the case, and there's steps that need to be taken to rectify the situation. That's where we're standing.
TJ, for Waterlong Road,
Yes,
some of the things I've read, it appears as though it's a foregone conclusion as far as the developer's concerned, that they have access to that road.
They,
By Walter
during,
Long.
during the conversation, during the
At the beginning,
conversation,
not Walter Long to give.
Exactly.
during the conversation, they said they had some, I thought they said they had some type of agreement to access the road, but I haven't seen that yet. It's not recorded.
Well, if the government still owns it, yeah.
See,
that's no
the only thing that pointed that out was when Tractor Supply got a pipe agreement in '22, and a temporary building permit, I got some documentation that said that in front of Tractor Supply is all owned except for a half-acre parcel owned by the federal government. They couldn't determine whose pipe this was. They alluded to across the street had a half-acre property. So Michelle Dupree spent the night going on the recorder of deeds and researching that property, so. Fortunately, I don't charge for that, so, no. But it appears that they did vacate their condemnation when they gave Walter Long and Library Baptist Church theirs. But at the beginning, the condemnation dealt with a Mrs. Wilma Bloxam, and that was never vacated, which means they own the bridge crossing the creek. So unfortunately, Walter Long doesn't appear to be able to dedicate that road to them if they don't own the beginning.
right. And then you have an issue with private street, which limits the number of new lots that can be built off of the private street. Correct. Okay, so I think that's all on Mineral Beach for now. I'll skip number 5. That's on the agenda to be discussed later. Moving ahead to number 6, as I referenced to Pete earlier during public comment, I did meet with Tuscany Estates, the developers, today. There will be a punch list for infrastructure issues that will be generated and agreed to by the developer. And it's my understanding, my recommendation, that when we get to that point, having a punch list for the infrastructure, that those items would be addressed before any further approvals are given for Miranda to move forward with their portion of the development.
With
So,
the timeline? With
Say
the
again?
timeline?
yeah, there would be, yes, there would be a,
Because they'll tell you they'll do it and they never do.
we can have them include a time.
And that's not that much different than Mineral Beach. You know, Tuscany Estates doesn't really have an escrow here anymore, doesn't really.
Right.
You try to, you have to do these informational things to determine all that.
Right. Okay, next is Pittsburgh Powder Coat. I just want to, I know we talked about this via phone call with the supervisors last week, but our office is currently inspecting the public portion of the sewer construction. down at the Pittsburgh powder coat facility, per the terms of the developer's agreement there. You would like us to continue to do so, correct? It's my understanding that that project will continue next week.
Do we have an escrow with that?
I don't know.
So the taxpayers are paying for all this also for the past 19 years. So I think what we should do is, we should ask for an addendum to that developer's agreement, saying, because if you're going out there doing inspection, someone should pay for that, I would assume.
It spells out in the developer's agreement that the cost of the inspection is to be borne by the developer. That's included in there. I don't know the status of the escrow account of the
That's what
township.
you
I
had
don't know
told
about
me
that.
whenever.
But it clearly states.
The other
in there that
issue is this is dedicated to
inspected.
the public sewer line. This is gonna be Union Township sewer line. We have no choice but to have our engineer inspect.
I would not,
it.
I would advise you to have it inspected, especially if the developer's gonna pay the cost.
Yeah, but.
There's no reason to not inspect it.
No, I agree with you, but the question is, how do we get the money back there to do that?
I mean, there should be an escrow account.
There is.
Yeah, the only thing I could find that they paid for a zoning hearing, board hearing. You know, I could be wrong, I mean, you know, find in documents, but that's all I could find.
So how do you wanna handle that? Do you wanna amend the developer's agreement? Or at least request that the Pittsburgh Powder Code establish an escrow account?
I think what you ought to do is, I think we ought to ask,
Neither one of us negotiated the developer's agreement.
that's the reason why, like as board said, you know, the taxpayers are paying for you and myself involved. There's no reason why the taxpayers should pay. So, I think, is there a lot more work scheduled on this project?
Did we,
It'll be next week before they finish, yes.
did we find out whether or not there was a agreement?
Shared access agreement? Yes,
They sent it
the gentleman from Pittsburgh Powder Code sent it today, yeah.
It was recorded and everything?
I don't know if it was recorded, but it's executed and provided to the town.
But we have to know that that's recorded.
So, how much work do you think you're gonna have in this?
Our inspector's been down here this week watching that, and he'll be here next week.
What would you guys feel should be, just highball it?
For inspection. We're probably 20 hours at this point, with another 20 to 40 next week, depending on the contractor's schedule.
Okay, so it's 60 hours times what per hour?
60 hours time. Using round numbers, somewhere between, I don't know, $5,000 and $6,000.
So you can communicate with him that he needs to place an escrow $6,000 with the township.
Well, I'll take another look at the developer's agreement, and I'd be surprised if it doesn't include a clause for the escrow account. But we can handle that. Okay, last thing, I think, Pennsylvania American Water Company, water treatment plant clarifier project. So this is a new one to the engineer's report. I was contacted by Pennsylvania American, in July they requested a field meeting at the, water treatment plant to review some, changes to their grading plan. They're installing that, I think it's like an 80-foot diameter new clarifier at the treatment plant with a retaining wall. And they wanted input from the township engineer regarding the grading associated with that, and then resurfacing that roadway that goes down to our pump station, our sewage pump station.
So this Aldridge, is this the water treatment plant, Aldridge?
Yeah, Aldridge treatment
Michelle
plant.
Raymond.
So-
We have an outstanding amount of $17,000.
As of October, Pittsburgh Powder Code.
So, good question. So I think you ought to do. Council ought to do-
Escrow funds, they're behind on escrow funds.
Pennsylvania American is too.
16th, almost $16,000
That's as of
$7.
October 1st.
So I think we need to communicate with them also, and also with Pittsburgh powder coat is already up to $1,500, $1,500.
Again, that's as of October. I'm working on it. That I'm working on.
So, again, I would
And that's
suggest,
only dealing with Harshman's bills, so I'm only got as far as dealing with Hart, so I have not looked at attorney bills, that's where they're at, just engineer bills.
so when you communicate with the guy over at Pittsburgh Powder, tell him, according to what we have, we already have an outstanding amount of $1,545.
Great.
And
Okay.
then communicate with GWC, then we have an outstanding amount of $16,907.50.
907.50.
Right, and that's, that PAWC is from November 5th, 2021. So that's, and I would suggest you send him a copy of both of these, so he can
So
provide
that
us.
dates back to that point, that's when they opened their escrow, it's November 2021.
Okay. Can
I
you bump
do-
me copies of those?
Yeah, I did, I don't know if you want copies of these, but I did do supporting documents with them. So the Harshman bills that they're listed on pages, I did not do skip to the attorney part of it. Any agreements that were written up or anything.
All right, well, I'll clarify that it's just for
That's just for engineering.
Okay. So, the way I left things with Pennsylvania American, they're to provide us with a revised drawing that shows their concept for grading. And I think it would be a good idea for, one of the roadmasters, maybe Albert, and myself to, take a quick trip to El Rama just to look at that. I think it's Ramage Avenue that goes down to our pump station. They've completely torn that up as part of their work, which is to be expected, but I think we need to talk to them about, the entire width and pretty much the whole length, yes. We need to communicate to them what our expectations are for road restoration there, because it's, it's been, damaged severely by their activities, so. I don't know, Steve, could we take a trip down there to do
Yeah,
that?
when you want to get on.
Okay. I'll give you a call and we can set something up. Okay. That's all I have.
If my phone's back in service, I don't have a phone out for 3 years.
All right.
And neighbor either.
The last thing we also have the Christine Maid subdivision.
Yeah, I skipped that since that's on the
It's on the
agenda
agenda.
for the.
And we did the road thing, we talked about the roads, should be wrapped up soon. Told Steve when I left the house, the pavers were up at Veterans Park, they had extra asphalt apparently.
Huh?
And they're paving the top of the parking lot there, up top,
Wow,
so that's a good
it's
thing.
generous.
It is,
Yeah.
and it was
Okay.
looking pretty good.
Good.
Can't read it now.
They're not taking it
Asphalt
home
off
once
the
it's
truck,
hot, once it's hot, they're not taking it.
So the top of Veterans Park is
Great.
getting paved.
Great. That's all I have this evening. Thank you very much.
I have a question. On the MS4, these bags, filter bags, they said expect to put in.
Yeah.
The road crew put one in in the Boyko plant up there. After one rain, it was blocked up and the water was running down the road. It's not even going through the filter bags. I mean, what good are they?
They're a maintenance nightmare, Steve, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, not even in 24 hours, it's running over, it's blocked, they're blocked up.
It was a concern that I had immediately upon reading the pollution reduction plan. When that plan was put together in 2019, they recommended 9 different catch basins, I believe it was, in Union Township to install what Steve's mentioning. It's essentially a barrier to catch sediment before it enters the catch basin. Those are difficult to maintain. As Steve mentioned, they fill up very quickly with sediment and they create a hazard on the road, for lack of a better term, when the water that's supposed to be getting into that drain has nowhere to go because there's a clogged barrier that's not allowing it to pass through.
Well, that's a high maintenance thing too. I mean, I don't know why.
It's a very high
whoever came
maintenance.
up with that idea to put those in like that they plug right up. I mean, they don't even last 24 hours. I mean, well.
So,
I just thought
as-
we'd call and
as-
see if there could be something else put in there, a different type or something.
You don't know how much debris we have in our streets.
So the goal of those of those inlet filters was to catch sediment naturally, and then we would then be weighing that amount of sediment removed and reporting to DEP the amount of sediment removal so that we meet the terms of our pollution reduction plan, so that we remove 10% of the sediment from our drainage basins, if you will. So, yeah, those filters needed to be installed before our permit expires, which is next June. We need to be demonstrating to DEP as per the terms of our pollution reduction plan that we've removed 10% of sediment this upcoming year. So.
Just to clarify, when you say they have to be installed before next June, do you mean they have to be installed and
And
measured?
removing sediment,
And
yes.
Yeah, they've already put on
Okay,
how
so
many
we don't
in, I
have
think
till
they might
next
have
June
put
to
them.
put them in, we have till next June to give a report on what
Right.
Right.
is.
Right. So I've had some conversations. Admittedly, you know, we were not around during the
This wasn't your plan.
approval of the pollution
Right.
reduction plan. I'm
Yeah.
trying to choose my words carefully. I've had some conversations with the folks at DEP who are administering this permit on the state level, about what we can do as an alternate to these inlet filters. In other townships that our office represents, we've generated this same pollution reduction plan. We've done projects like stream bank restoration. We've done projects like retrofitting ponds. You know, the Tuscany Estates pond comes to mind just as a possibility. I'm not sure if that's, you know, we would have to look at that. But I guess what I'm trying to say, and I was desperately trying not to include MS4. I was trying to give us a break from MS4 for a
So
moment.
you're saying this wasn't your,
Steve brought it up. So
this plan was in place when you came?
it was, and I think, you know, we have one more year on our permit here. I think we need to have a realistic conversation with the board about whether we want to try to amend this pollution reduction plan to change the strategy so that we're not relying on 9 inlet filters to remove pounds and pounds and pounds of sediment that's gonna continue to be a maintenance nightmare for
When you
our road.
remove it and you weigh it, what do you do with it?
Who puts those
It doesn't
filters
just
in?
rain and.
You
I mean,
landfill
so you
it.
put it in a pile and then it rains and it goes somewhere else.
You pay to dump it in a landfill.
I mean, you put it in a
So,
pile and
so
it rains.
can we do something else instead
That's
of
what he's
that?
saying.
Yes.
Will that,
Yeah, I've spoken to Lauren Nolfi, she's my main contact with DEP for the MS4 permit, and DEP has their own concerns, not dissimilar from ours relating to the inlet filters. They're not the strongest supporter of using those for pollution reduction, for sediment removal. But yeah, I think if that's something that we want to look at, we should start sooner than later. I'm not a strong proponent of the inlet filters either. I think they're gonna be a real drag on our road crew to be constantly maintaining
Oh, yeah, because
and cleaning them out.
not to mention it's causing, from what Steve is saying, a hazard, which could cause
Could also flood
township to be
somebody.
a
Exactly.
liability.
It could flood somebody's house nearby.
So, yeah, if there's an alternative, how we can comply, but not do,
Is there an alternative that you feel is cost effective in repairs? I mean, I don't want $1 million alternative for filter bags.
Well, and that's the thing, you know, they're a cheap option, they're
That's probably why they picked.
easiest, quickest to install, they don't involve construction, they don't involve bidding something out to have a contractor come do stream bank restoration on 350 feet of stream or something to that nature. So, yeah, other options would be more cost intrusive, but
it sounds like they're penny wise and pound foolish, because
This-
in the long run, you're gonna pay your road crew to continually go to those, so
It's a
we're
good
not
point.
saving money.
it's a great point, Linda,
There are
and
companies out there that install it and then maintain it.
And then that's back to the same cost.
Yeah, at least you will have your own road.
So, yeah, penny wise and pound
And,
foolish.
you know, this permit, you know, Chuck and I have talked about this before, and it was brought up at the PSATS conference. Everybody was wearing, buttons that said unfunded mandate on them, right? This is a program that DEP has put into place, and, it's, to speak frankly about it, it's forced upon us. It's a permit that we have to comply with, and, it's not gonna go away. So I think we need to, you know, we are running out of time. I mean, the permit expires in 9 months.
Can you come up with a couple of options?
Absolutely. I think it would be,
For the next meeting?
I think it would be
Wanna change
prudent.
anything about it?
It would be prudent to look at it and potentially submit a revision to our pollution reduction plan when we send in our annual report in September.
The biggest thing you're going to have to understand, every alternative that we're going to have, as TJ mentioned, is going to be much more expensive.
Yeah, it's not just a
And
matter of
state
what
isn't
road
paying
to clean in
for
a
it.
bag. Stream restoration is expensive.
Yeah.
It's expensive.
And there's permitting processes.
DEP and
It's a lot. I mean,
a lot.
frankly, it's a lot. There's other townships that Banks and Engineers works in that there's considerable construction capital costs associated with these, call them best management practices, BMPs, for the pollution reduction plan.
Well, if you give us a couple of options, and the next, you know, we can think about them for the next meeting. If somebody wants to put on an agenda to change something about it, then give
See,
us
one of
time.
the things that, just reiterating what TJ was saying, that was one of the issues that we were having with politicians when we were having hearings at the Hershey for the township meetings. And basically, the state politicians made the same statement. They went to the DEP on the federal level, and basically the DEP on the federal level says, find a way to pay for it. We don't care.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, townships apply for funding assistance for major projects like this. There's obviously, PennDOT comes to mind first, but there's
I've talked to
LSAs and
a couple
other
of-
projects.
I've talked to a couple of townships, if they go on them about mine drainage, that's they,
And
we have to watch it too, that's what I'm saying, it's a nightmare.
we're an Appendix A community for acid mine drainage. The situation on 837 comes to mind immediately down in El Rama, but, you know, there will be, I'm speculating to a certain degree, but there will be acid mine drainage components of we have to renew our permit, before it expires, and I would be surprised if there's not provisions in there to deal with this acid mine drainage on some level, so I'm thinking that's coming down the line as well. But, yeah, certainly, we'll look at a couple projects that,
We're gonna require the federal government to come back and clean up that Nike site, so. It's
hopefully soon.
poison.
We'll put together a couple ideas for projects that might work and some cost estimates, and we can talk about them.
Okay.
Anybody else have anything?